start of tonight's training, okay? So here's what I want everybody to do. Either open up a fresh Word document or a blank sheet of paper, or if you've already made some version of a names list, take that out, but only take it out with an open mind of this is just the beginning. I want you to hear my words as I go through this. And I'm going to give you a little time to expand kind of your names list from an attitude of abundance with some of the things that we talked about today. By a show of hands, who here has already thought of some people that you think would benefit from WFG services? By a show of hands, who has thought of some people? Okay, great. Okay, and we're going to talk about your potential clients and how many people you have on your list. But that's not what I want to know. Notice what I just said, but that's not what I want to know. That question, who do I know that would buy this stuff? Who do I know that would get this from me? Is the wrong question to be asking yourself at the start of your business. At the start of your business when making your names list. So as much as I admire and I appreciate and I'm excited that many of you have already started to think about who do I know that would want these products, that's not the question we want to ask right now. The exercise we're going to do is just to come up with as many qualified customers that you've ever even spoken to. And qualified to me doesn't mean that you know they're going to buy. See, that who do I know is going to buy question limits your pool really quickly. Because you're like, I think my aunt would buy. My sister has a lot of money and she's young and she has kids. She would get it. And you see how you start to prejudge too quickly. You start to limit when you just ask, who do I know that would buy? Because some of my biggest sales in all the direct sales worlds have come from setting up appointments with people who told me they were not going to buy anything. I was selling security systems at one point, and I was building out a regional sales program for a company called Vivint, if you've ever heard of it before. And that was one of the direct sales companies that I was building out a sales team for. Okay, and I was practicing because I obviously wanted to lead by example. And so I remember I set up an appointment that we have ADT. I don't think we're going to get anything, but sure, Mike, if you want to come by, you can come by. I was like, yeah, because again, Brian, the goal is just to set up a lot of appointments regardless of if they're going to buy. I get over there and they fall in love with the differences of this smart home product compared to what ADT had. Not only did he get the product for his home, he goes, you can put this in like all types of homes, right? Because I can now view all the cameras from my phone. He put it in his church. He brought me to his church and had me put it in the church. He had me put it in his vacation home, and he had me put it in his business. So from I'm not going to buy, it led to 4 sales. I'm really glad that I didn't start off my names list just going, who do I know that's definitely going to buy? I'm glad I just brainstormed as many qualified people as I could. And in my mind, qualified basically means this: 25 and older and has a job. That's it. 25 and older and has a job. So he goes, yeah, but they don't have kids. I know plenty of people that have retired early because at 28, they got whole life policies when they had no kids yet. And then they use that money to leverage that to start investing in trailer park homes or mobile home parks, right? Or real estate and whatever. Okay? Or on the flip side, you might think, oh, they're 68 already. I know plenty of people. My dad turned 66 yesterday. I know plenty of relatives that are still trying to figure out how to better set up their financial plan right now, still recovering from 2008. So don't prejudge, just 25 and has a job. Some of the people you think of, you might be friends with and you might be like, they wouldn't get. Write them down anyways. Why write them down anyways? Because the purpose of the exercise is to create abundance and brainstorm. What do I mean by that? Create abundance and brainstorm. Two things. Brainstorming, when I write down, I was like, oh man, I forgot. I started writing down like all my friends that I played basketball with. And then I was like, oh shoot, I forgot about my basketball coach. And I forgot about that person. One of my best sales in a direct sales role is I called my basketball coach. One, I didn't think he made a lot of money because he was my basketball coach. Number two, I wasn't even going to originally write him down because he wasn't one of the first people I thought of when I said, who do I think's definitely going to buy? I'm glad I did the whole brainstorming exercise where I just wrote down as many names as I could. Anybody that I'd ever come in contact with, that I basically knew their name, I knew they were 25 and older, and I knew had a job. I mean, shoot, most of us have at least 500 Facebook friends these days. And unless for some weird reason you're Facebook friends with a bunch of 14-year-olds, you probably know, right, a handful of qualified people. In other words, right now, guys, do not worry about whether or not you would even call them. That's the other thing that stops people going, I mean, I could write them down, but I'm probably not going to call them. They live in Alaska. Well, first of all, you could see them virtually if you wanted to. Number two, maybe you'd be nervous about calling them, but what if I told you I have a script where you can reach out to people that you're nervous about calling in a way that's not salesy, that comes across more as just like you're expanding your business and you wanted to see if they knew anybody for you to call. See, sometimes you don't have to reach right out and say, hey, do you want to see me? Sometimes you could say, hey, buddy, I know we haven't talked in forever. If this is not for you, that's okay. But I'm expanding my business right now. A lot of people are benefiting from this service. And my manager asked me to reach out to as many people I know and just see if they had 3 people they could think of that might benefit from improving their financial situation. If you think of at least 3 people, I'm putting you into a drawing for a $50 gift card. See, sometimes there's that pool of people on your list that are like, I don't know if I'd call them. But that's because you're thinking you're calling them to try and sell to them. What if you knew there was a way to still reach out to them that was a little lower barrier to entry? And you know what's funny, guys? When you say that script, who do you know that might benefit from finances? 2 out of 3 times, guess what they say? Well, I mean, maybe I would, right? And so then they volunteer to want to sit down with you. And then you obviously have your normal script, which, by the way, is the go-to script, which is your normal one, right? Hey, I just started a new career. I wanted to see. You always start with that one. But then you'll have a tier of people on your list that I call your chicken list. Your chicken list is like, sometimes I call it your nah list. Your nah list is this. All right, I'd call him. I'd call her. Nah, I wouldn't call him, right? That's what I call your nah list. And guess what? You can have a softer approach in how you reach out to them. But don't eliminate that person. Because maybe you nah list approach them and they raise their hand and go, actually, yeah, no, I might benefit from that. Or maybe they say, I don't think I need that help, but you know who you should talk to? You should talk to my niece. You just never know. So don't eliminate people, guys. It's the biggest killer you could do to getting off to a fast start in this business. Okay? So even if you think you would never, ever, 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 ever text them or call them, still write them down. Did I make that point clear to the effectiveness of this exercise? That if you think of their name, even if you don't know their last name or their phone number, write them down. The purpose of this first exercise is to write down every qualified person you can think of. So as you're writing people, guys, there will be people you're terrified to see. You're like, oh my gosh, my ex-girlfriend's mom, I would never call her. Cool. Still write her down. Still write her down. Okay? Because you never know when you might build the confidence to just reach out to them. You never know when there might be a special or a script you learn that would reach out. You just never know. Or it might help you prejudge someone that you wouldn't have thought of. And last thing, if you're like, oh, but they live far away, again, remember, you can do most of this virtually anyways. Okay? So 10% of you will come up with only 25 people, maybe 50. I challenge you to go bigger. I challenge you to think outside the box. People maybe you're not friends with, but they're your neighbor. Okay? 10% of you are going to I could do this exercise for 3 hours. I've had people literally write down 500 plus people. right? Because when you really go through your Rolodex, your phones, your social medias, you take out your yearbook, you take out your kids' school directories, you start to realize just how many people you come in contact with. Most of you, though, on average, my challenge to you is to come up with 50 to 100 names. 50 to 100 names. That doesn't mean you'll call all 50 to 100, but it gives you a solid foundation to start with. I really do believe most people could write down 50 to 100, right? If they really took the time to think so. So here's what I'm going to do. It's 8:17. I'm going to give everybody 10 minutes to get this exercise started. I want you to do it right now. I don't want you to use this to take a break, not to take your camera off and run. I want you to work. These next 10 minutes, really use them as work time. Take your cell phone out, go through your list, go to your social media, go through your name, but just shock yourself right now. And we'll do a little contest at the end. We'll do a little countdown and see who came up with 10, who came up with 25. But bare minimum, in 10 minutes, you should be able to come up with 25 names minimum. But don't stop when you get to 25. Don't worry about their phone numbers. You're just going to come up with as many names of people as you can think of. And last thing before I say go, pay attention here. Last thing before I say go. If you start being like, oh, I don't think I know anybody, don't ruin it for everybody else in the room. Keep working. Just try and force your pen to keep moving. And for 10 straight minutes, just try and challenge yourself. Try and think outside the box and see how many people you can come up with. And what I'll do every 2 minutes or so is I'm going to thought jog a couple categories that might force you to go, oh, you're right, I do maybe know somebody like that. And that'll get you going as well. Any questions before we start? 10 minutes. Ready? Everybody have a pen? Set? Go. You haven't written down every family member and relative, whether you talk to them every day or don't really talk to them at all. Every cousin, aunt and uncle, parents if they're alive. Off from family to distant relatives. Friends of your family members. Think about who was at Christmas or Thanksgiving this year. Friends of friends, family friends. Relatives you see only once or twice a year. Keep going. Everywhere that you've lived, go through different phases of your life. See, sometimes we only think of our most recent and present moment circles. Think about neighbors where you grew up, neighbors currently, friends you had in one state, one city, a different place that you live. Yeah, maybe you haven't talked to them in 10 years. Just write them down. Maybe you've moved churches. Maybe you haven't even written down people from your church yet, or your synagogue, or mosque, or place of worship. Even if you're not super close to people from church, have you written down at least the pastor? Maybe it's a youth leader for your kids. If you have kids that are older, your kids' friends' parents, your kids' teachers, coaches, tutors. If you don't have kids and you're younger, what about your parents' friends? And sometimes people say to me, oh, my parents don't have any friends. But they might have 1 or 3 or 5. But again, don't leave those people off. The simple activity of going through your cell phone A through Z, or your social media friends list. That alone should get you 25 plus. I said, again, a few of you might be like, I really don't know a lot of people. Keep working hard. Keep trying. If it's just a matter of, I don't think I'd call them, write them down anyways. You might be terrified to call now. I get it. Some of you have more friends than others and less. Don't sweat it. I care about your effort right now. Keep going. Strong is where I want you to not give up. Think back to teachers from growing up or coaches. Think about friends growing up that maybe you don't stay in touch with as much anymore. What about your siblings? Do you even have your siblings written down? If you do, what about your siblings' friends? Siblings, significant others, spouses. Have you gone to your significant other side of the family, even if you never met them? You just know of them. Maybe you only met them a few times. Whether it's your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, their parents, their best friends. Last minute. If you haven't written down like your doctor or chiropractor or dentist, you're not thinking hard enough. You're not allowing yourself to expand. You're still asking yourself, just who do I know that I want to sell to? The woman who does your nails, the person who cuts your hair. Your massage therapist, your real estate agent, person who walks your dogs. Last 30 seconds. Keep writing. Get at least 3 more on there. Last 10 seconds, keep going. Last 10 seconds, keep going. All right. And stop, and stop. All right, we send this out real quick. Okay. Ready? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you wrote down at least 10 names. Raise your hand if you wrote down at least 10 names. Great job, everybody. Okay? Great job if you did. If you didn't, okay, make sure you talk to Angeline personally about either why or why you did not, or how we could help you Figure that out, because 10's a really good start. 10 is a really important foundation. So David, are you saying you guys don't have at least 10 to start? I want to be clear there if your hand's not raised. I just want to be clear there. If your hand's not raised, does that mean you guys don't have 10?
Oh, you're talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I've got more than 10.
Oh, okay, got it. So, sorry to clarify. If you have 10,
I'm sorry.
If you have 10 or more, raise your hand. If you have at least 10, good. Keep your hand raised if you have 25 or more. Keep your hand raised if you have 50 or more. Keep your hands raised if you have 75 or more. Really good job. Raise your hand. Keep your hand raised if you have 80 or more. 90. Really good. Eric, 100 or more. Keep your hand raised. 105. 110. There we go. Very good job.
How can you write so fast?
Effort. Either that or he already had a lot of them written down. I don't know.
I had old rosters that I'd just been.
Angeline wants me to do field trainings. Who do I know that would see me? That energy is so much more like, I don't think I have anybody. What's the energy and what's the confidence when you see that you have 25 to 50 people written down? For most people, they tell me that at least the abundance, the confidence goes up. Because now what you can do is, you did that in 10 minutes, guys. Imagine if you had an hour. Imagine if you could call your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister and say, hey, who else should I add to this list? Imagine if, like Eric, you could go through yearbooks and rosters and social media. Many people have come up with 1,000 people on this list. Now, if you only have 50, you could be successful too. I'm just saying those high numbers to challenge you to go, wow, you're right. I definitely have more than the 6 that I thought I had. Okay? And you're going to come up with more names. Why? Why do you want to come up with more names? And then Robert and I'm going to come to you. So you can be more selective. It gives you abundance. It gives you confidence. And then what you start to do is you start to add their phone numbers. You start to add how you would contact them. You're going to write down either their phone number. You're going to write down IG, Facebook. Maybe you're going to reach out to your mom and get their phone number. But the next step is to come up with as many contact points as you can for each of those people. Some will be LinkedIn. Some will be social media. Some will be phone numbers. Some will be whatever. Some will be in person, right? Next time I'm at church, I'll talk, right? But come up with as many ways that you can contact those people as you can. Because it's obvious that the more work you put into this assignment, the better opportunity you have to get off to a fast start in your first 30 days. The better shot you have to hit 330. Why? What did we start with? And this whole training. Technically, Peyton couples count as one lead, but you can count them as 2 people if you want for the sake of the exercise, right? Why? What did we start with today? The key to getting off to a fast start in this business is just setting up a lot of what? Setting up a lot of field trainings or appointments, okay? And so obviously, the more names you put on this list, the better confidence you'll have. You can just set up a lot of appointments. Who would you rather be? Pay attention to this. Would you rather be the person that sets up 20 field trainings? Would you rather be the person that sets up only 5 field trainings and sells on 4? 80% only had to deal, Brian, with 1 rejection. That's pretty good. 5 field trainings, 4 sales. Would you rather be that person? Or would you rather be the person that sets up 20 field trainings and only sells on 10? It's only 50%. But you closed on 10. You got a couple recruits from it. Who would you rather be? The one that set up 5 and sold on 4? Or the one that set up 20 and sold on 10? That is why the key is just to set up a lot of field trainings early on and keep improving your skills. And even the 10 that didn't buy, you got a little better each time. You got referrals from some. You learned lessons about. Okay? I'm telling you, this is one of the most important assignments you'll ever do. And I'm not a school teacher. So I'm not here to give you assignments just for busy work. Anytime I train people in the direct sales world, I remind them of that. I'm not a teacher. You're your own business. The effort you put into this will determine how quickly you feel confident to do a lot of appointments. Okay? How confident you are to do a lot of appointments. So let's move into the final phase. Robert, while I pull up my notes back up. Question. Success during your first 30 days will be determined by the number of field trainings you complete. Listen to the sentence I just said. Your success during your first month will be determined by the number of field trainings that you complete. And to schedule a lot of field trainings, you have to make a lot of phone calls or send a lot of text messages. Does that make sense? That is the key. You invite a lot of people. And that's why this is one of the most important skills we'll ever teach you. So here are some keys to setting up a lot of appointments. Here's some keys to setting up a lot of appointments. Number one, smile while you dial. I know that sounds cheesy as crap, but smile while you dial. People don't want to set up an appointment with someone that doesn't sound fun or friendly. Smile while you dial. Number two, remember that the goal is not to sell over the phone. Remember that the goal is not to sell over the phone. The purpose of your text message or phone call is simply to what? Schedule the appointment. See, when you remind yourself of that, two things. You don't get too attached and you don't become too salesy. When you reach out just trying to sell, people can feel that. And that alone could stop you from scheduling the appointment because you come across too salesy too early. Keep the conversation short and to the point. The goal is just to schedule the appointment. Next tip. Stress the fact that it's not a question of them wanting to buy or not. In other words, some people might even say, are you sure you want to come over? Like, I'm not going to buy anything. Respond by saying, that's okay. I get credit towards my training. Just for doing the field training, because it's part of my practice, whether you get anything or not. And I just want to do as many appointments as possible. Next one, planning and scheduling your time first is very important. Why? One of the worst things you could do when trying to schedule appointments is say things like, hey, when's good for you? Hey, when's good for you? You don't want to say that. Here's what happens when you just say, when's good for you? People end up scheduling with you a week or two from now. People end up scheduling a week or two from now. Then they cancel, and then you try and reschedule a week from now. So next tip. You always want to give a choice of 2 or 3 times. This skill comes from dentist practices. It's very, very well known that dentists are actually some of the worst business owners in the world. Right? They're really brilliant in one area, but it doesn't mean they were trained at dentist school how to run a business. So years ago, there was like a group of people that came together to train dentists how to stay in business. And one of the first skills they taught them was to offer your 2 or 3 next available appointments. Dentists being all friendly, your local neighborhood dentist used to be like, hey, when do you want to come? Nobody wants to go to the dentist, right? Unless it's like really urgent. So they're like, can I schedule like next month? And then again, they would cancel and reschedule. Instead, now they train dentists to say, hey, our next available appointments are this Thursday at 3 or Friday at 1. Which one can you make? Nod your head if that makes sense. Okay? So same thing here. Always give a choice of 2 or 3 times. Next point. Set up a definite time. Set up a definite time, not a tentative time. This is another pitfall new agents fall into. You call Angeline, you're like, I think I got one for Saturday. But your aunt said this. We could probably do Saturday afternoon, but like check in with me Saturday morning first. That's not an appointment. I'd rather you say, and Sally, if you're not sure if that's a definite time, I'd rather schedule for Sunday or Monday and a definite time than Saturday for a tentative time. So could you do Saturday at 4 as a definite? Or should we look at Sunday at noon instead? Tentative appointments almost never happen. I'd rather you schedule a later appointment for a definite than a tentative and make sure they write it down. Next one, allow yourself probably 90 minutes. right? Yeah, the appointment might only take 45, but ask them to block off 90 minutes. The last thing you want is someone really interested and then being like at the end saying what? I got to get my daughter to blank. We have dinner coming up here, and then ending the appointment short. That's one of the most frustrating things you can run into. When calling people at first, if you're going to phone call, avoid leaving messages. The first time or two you call, don't leave a message at all. Why? Because they just see that you called and it piques their interest. Curiosity, remember this, curiosity creates conversation. Curiosity creates conversation. So even if you're just texting, a lot of times I'll just say, yo, Sally, how are you? How are you holding up with COVID? I won't tell them why I'm texting at first. I'll get them responding first because they're curious. They're like, why is Johnny texting me? A mistake you would make is texting the whole script. Hey, Johnny, I just got started with a new career. Blah, 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 blah. Do you want to help me? They read the whole thing. They're like, I don't want to deal with that right now. So they just ignore it. But if you just said, hey, Johnny, how are you? They're like, I'm good. Hey, what's going on? It's been a while, right? It creates the conversation. Okay? Realize that. Next one. 5-to-1 rule. 5-to-1 rule when you're new. 5-to-1 rule when you're new. Realize that not everyone you message will schedule an appointment. Generally, for every 5 contacts, you'll schedule 1 appointment. Whether it's 5 texts or 5 calls. So when someone doesn't answer or respond to your text, don't get caught up on it. Go to your next best 5. If someone tells you they already own financial products, still set up the appointment. Still set up the appointment. Those are oftentimes the very best prospects. If they were willing, why? There's a mistake in the financial service sometimes that says this. Too many people are trying to convert atheists to Christians versus just trying to convert a Christian to come to your church. So if they already believe in whole life policies, but maybe they only got a $100,000 policy the first time around because they were 26, they're like, you know what? Now is the time to probably get $1 million policy. So don't be discouraged if they already own financial products, which is what they'll tell you on the phone. That's their light objection about why they don't want to see you, but they're actually a really good person to see. Right? And when you phone, treat it like work. Eliminate distractions. Call in waves. Don't just make a couple texts and then stop. Make 20 texts at a time. Make 30 calls at a time. Really treat it like work. This is the only part of the business that really feels like work. And if you treat it like a job, you'll start getting paid like a job. Too many people treat contacting like a hobby. Yeah, Angelina, I texted a few people today. Be honest, how many of you have ever done that before? Yeah, I texted a few people today. How many people did you text? 2? Guys, that's not working. That's reaching out to your mom and seeing how she's doing. Right? Really treat the contacting part of this business like work. Block off at least an hour a day when you do it. And when you do, 10% of your first contacts will go awful. 10% of your first contacts will go awful. They'll tell you it's a scam. They'll ignore you. They'll just straight up say no. And if that's you, and you respond the right way, my best contacts come up to my worst contacts, you're still going to be a rock star. 10% of you are going to get off to an incredible start. You're going to message 8 people and schedule 8 appointments. You're going to be like, I'm so good at this. I'm just a natural. That's not necessarily the case either, but keep your foot on the pedal. Keep going. 80% of you, though, will experience the 5-to-1 rule. If you reach out to 15 people, you'll schedule 3 appointments. If you reach out to 15 people, you'll schedule 3 appointments. So who wants to make sure they get off to a fast start? All right? If you do, minimum, plan to reach out to 15 people. When you play it too small and you're like, I want to set up 3 appointments, so I texted 3 people. Does everybody get how you set yourself up for failure that way? I want to set up my first 3 appointments, so I just messaged 3 people. No, I want to set up 3 appointments, so I messaged 15 people. That's how you set yourself up for success. You'll be happier and you'll be more confident. And imagine if you set up 10 appointments and 6 of them bought right away, guys. How would you now feel? Versus if you played it safe and only set up 2 appointments and only 1 bought. You'd have some confidence, but you wouldn't have that fire to keep going. And that's why you want to set up a ton of appointments right away. So Angeline's going to make sure you guys have a script for the sake of time, because I need your help, because I need to do 5 field trainings just to get started. And I value your opinion, regardless if you buy or not. And maybe you could even give me a few referrals. So I wanted to see if I could stop by this upcoming weekend, Friday at 2 o'clock. And again, always offer times. Or Saturday at 3. You can do this via text or call. Angeline has the more word-for-word script if you want to.
I just sent it to them, the link on the chat.
So I'll end with this. If I could guarantee you that if you committed 5 hours of contacting this week, that you would make your first sale. And if you committed 5 hours of contacting every week, that's 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, that you would be in position to be 330. And you would never have to worry about money again. What kind of effort would you put in? Personally, if I were you, I wouldn't jeopardize that opportunity, because you don't want to look back with regret. Give it a shot. Like we started with, commit for 90 days. And 10% of you, your first 30 days, you might go awful. All right? You might have the worst history. You might have the worst start in company history. I've had reps that sold nothing in their first 30 days and are still 6-figure earners now. You might get off to a great start. And 80% of you, if you schedule 10 field trainings in your first 30 days, you'll at least start to have some confidence that you can make money doing this. And that is the key to succeeding here. Attitude and activity, and setting up a lot of appointments. I have 2 last minutes. Any last questions?